A house is made of wood and stone, but only love can make a home. Welcome to the RepcoLite Home Improvement Show, helping you make your home into one you'll love even more. On News Radio Wood 1300 and 106.9 FM.
Well, good morning, everybody. Happy Saturday. Happy Saturday, Dan Altina, president of RepcoLite Paints. How are you?
I'm well. How are you?
Yeah, I mentioned that because I'm kind of a rube, and I had failed to mention that for the last, how many weeks have you done this now?
I've lost count, so I
Yes.
guess that's, enough.
It's been enough, yeah. We mentioned and introduced you the very first week you were on, right after Betsy left.
Yep.
And you stepped in. We introduced you and did a nice little walk through your past, unearthed some skeletons and things like that, right?
Yeah.
Talked about
We're gonna
all the
do this
reasons you'll
again.
never run for office anywhere. No. No, we introduced you, and then I never, ever thought to do that again.
Okay.
Until this past weekend, where I got my 6th email from a listener saying, "Who is this other Dan?"
Right. Who's this mystery person?
Oh, and I thought, that's such a dumb mistake. I failed to repeatedly introduce you. So Dan Altina, president of RepcoLite, you've been in the company almost
Close
all
to
your
40
working
years.
life,
Yeah.
right?
Oh, yeah.
Did you have other jobs outside of RepcoLite?
Worked at the pizza place when, I was a teenager. And,
Yeah. And then
That's about
that's
it.
it. So you a lot of experience, and you've got a lot of different things that you've done. I mean, you do a lot of work on cars, and you've got a million projects.
Oh, hobbies. Yeah.
All kinds of different fields.
Sure. Yeah.
So it's fun. You bring a lot of expertise that I don't have, or at least a lot of experiences. And I like to think that there's a ton of really awesome stuff I bring that you can't even remotely come close to.
I'm sure that's
right?
true.
When we find those, we're going to write them down.
Yeah.
I've got a pad right here. It's empty right now, but when we find them,
Okay. I'll start keeping track.
yeah, we'll note those down. Anyway, Dan Altina, I wanted to make sure I announced you, and from time to time we'll continue to
All right.
until everybody's familiar.
All right.
Then we'll let you go, and we'll bring somebody new in. Anyway, today we got all kinds of stuff we're going to try to cram in. And at the end of the show, we're going to talk about a Christmas present you received.
Yeah. I got a really special cooking gift for Christmas this year.
Yeah, your wife's sending you a message.
I
I have a new hobby for you.
Yeah, I haven't been carrying my share, I guess.
Yeah. It's an outdoor cooker, and when you hear exactly what it is, you're going to want one. And we're also going to be answering a customer's question about painting the exposed ceiling of a basement. But first, before we get to all of those things, from time to time, we talk about some of our favorite tools. Betsy and I have done that over and over. It's always fun to give people a list of things that you've used, whether it's a tool or whether it's a cooking implement or whatever it is, something that has saved you time, saved you money, made your life easier.
Something you didn't know that you couldn't live without until you had it.
It's really fun to tell people about that because
Yeah.
you got experience with it. And there's something that's in our studio. Our studio is encased within, what do you call this? A big warehouse.
Yeah.
We've got kind of a metal shop. We've got a woodworking shop. All here. So we've got access to all kinds of tools. And one of the things that has caught my eye from the very beginning and scared me, I would never ever touch it, but it's a welder.
You're intimidated by the welder.
Extremely intimidated, but so envious because you've used it and I've watched you create all kinds of things.
Yeah.
And
Fix a lot of things,
fix
too.
so many things, and it's so handy.
Yeah.
And yet I've felt like it's something inaccessible to me.
Right.
Clearly Dan's got schooling. He went to college for welding or something is what I assumed. And we were talking about it the other day, and you talked about how simple it was to get into.
Right. It's super easy, really. And the more I've used it, the more invaluable it's become to me. So that's why it's a good little subject for us today.
Yeah, because even though you may be intimidated and may think this is not something I could ever do,
You're wrong.
you're wrong.
Right. I hate to just put it out there like that, but that's it.
It's okay. I hear that a lot. But
No,
we're talking
Dan, you're
women,
wrong.
because you've got a friend who
Yeah, one of my
uses it.
friends. Yeah, she creates a sculpture with her welder.
Right.
And and she, I mean, it's her big hobby now. And it's not intimidating. It is on the surface, but it's not when you get into it.
So what have you done with it? I mean, first let's make the case. Why would anybody even think about getting into it if they haven't run into a situation where they've needed one?
Right. Well, for me, it started from the car hobby, fixing up old cars. Sometimes it's hard to find a replacement part, or you just can't replace a part. You have to fix the part. And so that's how I got into welding way back when is, okay, I can't replace this. I need to fix it.
That's when I usually quit that project and moved on to a new one.
Go find a new one, right? Yeah, and then that one sits there for a while.
Yeah.
I have a few of those too, as you know, because they're around here.
Yeah,
but
I've seen them. So you would fix parts,
yeah. Yeah, right. And so that's really primarily what I've used it for. I've built things with it too, but really it's mostly that I've used it to fix things.
So what other things have you fixed? I mean, give people some...
A good example is this was just last winter. I was snow blowing my driveway, and my 15-plus-year-old snowblower, the handle cracked. Okay. It's like handlebars for a bicycle. And
a little bell on the side.
Yeah, watch out, here I come, ding, ding, ding. And that handle broke. It's old. It's an off-brand. I don't know where I'd even buy a new handle for this thing, but I can easily weld it. In less than 5 minutes, I was back up and running again after having broken one whole side of this handle off of this thing.
No, I know Dad had a snowblower that eventually he gave to me. It was older when he had it. I had it for 15 years after that yet, but we had a similar thing where it rusted through, or he had an area where rust had weakened everything, and I believe he hit something on the driveway, maybe a raised concrete slab a little bit, and it cracked it. And it was pretty much toast. It wouldn't work, but we didn't have the ability to weld it, so we had to find somebody with that ability.
Right.
But
pay somebody.
Fixed it, and the thing ran for another 15 years or more.
We have at home an ice cream set, if you know what that is.
I have no idea, but it sounds good.
It sounds yummy.
What in the world would you need to weld an ice cream set?
An ice cream set is a small table and 2 small chairs. You know, like, I guess you could have 4 chairs. It's like what you'd see outside of an ice cream parlor. You know,
so it has no ice cream on it at all.
It shouldn't.
It's not an ice cream maker.
If it does get ice cream on it, you should wipe it off.
It's just a table and chairs?
Yeah, it's called an ice cream set. You've never heard of that?
We at our house call those the little table and chairs outside. We have an ice cream set as well.
Okay, so now you know what it actually is.
I do.
So a lot of times they have these like hoopy-loopy backs that are like wrought iron. Well, one of ours came apart and it's broken. And so now what do I do? Throw away this whole set of table and chairs, or 2 minutes again with a welder, a little bit of cleaning up the metal before you weld, a little bit of spray paint, and the ice cream set is returned to like new condition. I had a riding mower, and the deck part where the blades spin rusted through. There was a hole there, and grass is flying out of this little hole. Well, all I had to do was carve away with a grinder the rusty metal, find a little piece of scrap metal and patch it up, and weld it closed, put a little more spray paint on that, and it's as good as new. Saved myself several $100s.
All right. So plenty of practical use.
Lots of practical use.
You still got people out there who are thinking there's no way. First off, is there a place we go? I mean, if we want to look for one, where are we doing that?
So most big box stores will have welders available. It may not be exactly the one that will work best for you. My experience has always been, and this is true whether it's a scissors or a welder or whatever, that you buy a good tool and you don't have to find a better one someday down the line. And so I bought mine at a welding supply store. There's one chain that's around in every community generally is called Praxair, Praxair.
And they'll help us get into this.
Yes, they'll help you find the welder that you need.
They're not going to shun me when they recognize
that you're
my
a noob.
Incompetence.
Right.
Yes, that I'm new. Let's just say it that way. I shouldn't have said the incompetence part. I'm assuming something that's not necessarily
They might be
true.
assuming incompetence, but they know for sure that you're new at it.
Okay,
right?
yeah, all right. And they're not going to be they're going to be cool with that.
They sure were with me. I mean, they helped me a lot. Just to understand the options and the price points and what you can do with one kind of welder versus another kind of welder.
So they'll walk me through what's best.
Yeah.
How expensive are we? I mean, a rough ballpark kind of an idea.
Somewhere between $800 and $1,000.
Okay, so it's steep.
It's sitting on not a cheap tool, no.
But we are, again, remember that I know we fixed a snowblower that I didn't, that's not an inexpensive item either.
That's
15 years of use out of that. You had a lawnmower
I've saved 10 times what I've paid for my welder since, I got it, just from fixing things.
So you got me there. It still seems complicated. It seems utterly terrifying.
Yeah, well, so complicated and terrifying are two different things, right? Like, so it's not complicated, but it is scary because you're dealing with melted steel, right? And sparks. And,
don't touch it with your fingers.
Yeah. So the spark is really bright, so you have to protect your eyes, So there's an auto-darkening helmet that uses an electronic sensor and an LCD sort of panel that normally you can see right through, but the minute it detects that spark, it darkens and protects your eyes. Makes welding really easy too.
And I'm sure you'd want gloves and
something
all of
to
those
protect
things.
your skin from the occasional spark that's going to land on it. Yeah.
All right. So a lot of practical use. A lot of fun. You've said you had a ton of fun with it.
Yeah, it is almost like an addiction. Like once you start welding something, you don't want to quit. And a lot of people at work know that I do welding, and so a lot of times people come to me, "Hey, I got this gas grill and the handle broke off, or whatever it is. Can you weld this for me?" I'm like, "Sure, yes. Yeah. Let me fix that for you."
Yeah. So if you need friends,
get a welder.
Get a welder, and there you go. You're going to have friends flocking in.
Yeah.
All right. We could keep going, but that's enough. That gives people an idea. It's an accessible hobby.
Don't be afraid of it. Yes, there's a spark. Yes, you're dealing with molten metal, but any minor, just taking normal precautions. Once you get familiar with it, within a half an hour of using it, you're going to become proficient. And after doing a couple projects, you're going to feel like a pro.
So more information, if you are thinking, hey, that does sound a little bit interesting, you could check out Praxair.
Yeah.
Call them.
Miller Welding.
Miller Welding.
That's the brand that I have as a Miller welder, and they've got all kinds of information on their website.
Yep. Check out the website. Honestly, if you have some basic questions or just want to dig a little deeper, I'm sure you wouldn't mind answering some of those. You can email us, radio@repcolite.com. I'll make sure Dan sees that, and he'll respond, and go from there.
Sounds good.
All right. Welding. Maybe I've got a new hobby.
Let's try it out. Let's go weld something.
I don't know.
You're getting scared again.
I'm
Come on.
Sweating. Yeah, I will, and we'll report back.
We'll start with scraps. It doesn't matter if you do it wrong. You're not going to wreck anything. You're not going to go blind. You're not going to burn a hole in your skin.
All right. So when I succeed, I'll let everybody know.
Yes.
And everybody who's paid attention to me for the last couple of years, they're going to know everybody can do it then. No worries.
Exactly.
All right, we're going to take a break, and when we come back, we're going to be answering that question about painting exposed ceilings in a basement.
Yeah.
And all the different things you need to know. That's all coming up next. Stay tuned.
Helping you turn your house into your dream home. This is the RepcoLite Home Improvement Show, presented by Benjamin Moore on News Radio Wood 1300 and 106.9 FM.
And we're back. Dan, let's answer questions. A question.
All right, let's start with one question.
Yes. We're going to go to the phone lines.
Oh, are we going to do that?
You paled for a second. Yeah.
I'm like, what? I'm looking around for a phone.
Yeah, I don't even have a phone here. No, we've got an email question. We get those from time to time. In fact, we receive a lot of questions.
Right.
And normally we just answer them via email or whatever. Call the customer, call the listener, and talk them through whatever they've got going on. But this particular one was so good that I wanted to deal with it, and also so in depth. There were so many different things to say. I really couldn't think of a good way to write an email to cover all of these things.
A response that covers all the angles.
Right. So I've got a question from Nancy. I won't give out her last name because I did not get her okay ahead of time. So anyway, from Nancy, here's the email. I'm planning to spray paint my exposed basement ceiling, including floor joists, ductwork, water pipes that are foam wrapped, and electrical wires. How do I calculate how much primer or paint that I need? She wonders if we have a primer and paint in one combination. And she lets us know that she wants just white. White up there with an eggshell or maybe a satin finish.
Okay.
So a lot of different things, and we're going to get to all of that. And we're going to try to unpack all the different components of that question.
But first, let's talk about why this is something she might want to do and why this is such a good question. A lot of people out there are in the very same situation. I know my basement, part of it is unfinished and has all the same sort of issues. Silver duct work, white and black wires, wood, all sorts of pipes going every which direction. Closing that up is a kind of a problem. To put a ceiling above that is a major job.
Right. My parents had the same thing, and they had pipes that hung down a couple of areas where they hung down
now
quite
what
low.
do? Do you have a hole in the ceiling where that pipe sticks down?
Right. We had somebody come in and say, well, you just box that area in. Well, we are not tall people. None of us are. I'm sure that comes as a shock to you, but my parents also.
Really? You've
are
come from
a little
short
shorter.
stock.
Yeah, and even we would have bumped our heads on those, lowering that ceiling. So there was no way for them to put a drop ceiling or anything like that.
Right.
So they painted it. And yes, it is a bit of a project. It is a little intimidating. Because you've got a lot of area to cover. It feels like
it's complicated.
It's definitely
it's
not like painting a wall. It certainly doesn't feel that way when you're looking at or considering it as a project.
That's right.
But when it was done,
the payoff.
Oh my goodness, what a change that was.
It's a transformation. It really is.
Yeah.
It's surprising.
All of a sudden, all those different colors are gone. It's one solid color. We went to a lighter color. That seems to be what a lot of people want to do. But blacks are also an option.
Sure.
And it is a little bit interesting because, our general intuition on things is that if we put black up there, it's going to bring the ceiling down and lower it. But it actually doesn't work that way.
It makes it sort of disappear.
It disappears, and it kind of gives you this open-ended feel.
Yeah, right.
To the space.
Almost the opposite.
Yeah, exactly. So all of those things are options, and I guess really what we're getting at is that the payoff is big. It's really worth doing. And if you've got a basement that's unfinished, like this, the floor, is unpainted, the walls, the block walls, maybe they're not what you wish they were, and the ceiling is open like this, tackling some of these projects can really give you a huge amount of extra space to your home, usable, livable space.
Transform the room and make it a place that you're not, afraid to show a visitor.
Right.
You can hang out down there.
Yeah, we always had the close your eyes when you walk through. Okay, now you can open your eyes.
Only the kids can hang out down there. The adults can't.
Don't look at the dungeon downstairs. So anyway, Nancy's going to jump into that, and we're going to dig into all of the different ins and outs, but I guess let's get out of the way first. She wants to start with a sprayer. Right? That's the question. Is that the best way to go? It is.
It is. It really is. Because of all the nooks and crannies and angles and all the surface area that needs to be painted, you could attempt it with a brush and a roller, but it is going to not go well for you. A sprayer is the way to go.
Right. The brush and roller, there's so much surface area. It just takes forever.
Right.
And some of the spots are not impossible to work around, but it's
very difficult.
So time consuming. So there are a lot of different options when it comes to sprayers. We're going to dig more into that on the other side of the break. But just a quick overview, you're going to want to get a commercial grade paint sprayer.
Right.
And we rent those out. That way you can get a really high-end piece of equipment at a relatively low price point. And we rent them out of our Kalamazoo location, our 17th Street in Holland RepcoLite, the Lakewood store in Holland, the Jennison store. All of those locations rent out the paint sprayers. You just need to give them a call, and they'll get you pricing and get you on the schedule if you want one. They'll walk you through how to use it. It's not as complicated as you might think, similar to the whole welder thing.
Right. Once you get 5 minutes under your belt again, you'll be proficient.
Exactly. So we're going to talk about all of that coming up in just a minute. Okay. Stick around.
If you want to take your DIY skills up a rung, the RepcoLite Home Improvement Show is here to give you a boost on News Radio Wood 1300 and 106.9 FM.
And we're back. I'm Dan Hansen.
And I'm Dan Altina.
You paused there for a second. Were you unsure?
I was trying to remember who I am.
Yeah.
It's one of those days.
Yeah, it is. You're busy with other things.
Yeah.
You're invested in other
sorry.
pursuits.
I'm sorry.
That's all right. Snap to, Dan.
I'm on my game now.
All right, good. We're answering a question from Nancy, a listener who wants to paint an exposed basement ceiling,
Right.
So all the open floor joists, She's got everything. What did she list off?
Ductwork, wires,
pipes wrapped in foam and stuff like that, and wants to know what to do. All right. We ended last segment just talking about why the project is a really good project, even though it's intimidating and big. It's a really big payoff project, right? And we mentioned that spraying it is the ideal procedure for getting the paint on there, and you want to use a commercial sprayer. We'll talk a little more about that at the end and give some recommendations. But now let's jump into the project, and because we're recommending a sprayer, the preparation is really key. Now, prep is always key, but with a sprayer, it's a little more involved.
Yeah, a little more extensive, right? We have to worry about overspray. That's what it's about, right? We have to worry about what the sprayer is painting that we don't want painted.
Right. So you've got to get everything masked off. But before you jump into that, you've got to get things cleaned up. So the ceiling's got to be dusted and vacuumed.
You're right. A lot of dust and, cobwebs and stuff like that accumulate up in there.
Right. So you're going to either have to hire a cleaning service.
Oh, yeah. That'll happen.
Yeah. No, just a shop vac with a bristled attachment is going to do the job.
That'll work.
Yeah. Get the spider webs down, get the dust off, and do as good a job as you can on that.
Yeah.
Because if you leave stuff,
it's going to show later.
It's going to show later. So do what you can to get that cleaned off. Another thing to consider is dealing with knots in the wood.
Yes, right. Because they will bleed through latex paint, which is what we'll be using.
Right.
So we have to stop that from bleeding through. And there's not a lot of products that actually do that very well. The one that we always recommend, because we know it works so well, is Bin, which is a shellac-based white primer. Works extremely well at preventing that brownish staining from bleeding through paint where there's a knot.
Right. There are a lot of stain blocking primers out there. There's a couple of really popular names that almost everybody knows and throws around, and they're water-based, some of them.
Yes.
And everybody wants to use that. It says right on here, it's a water-based stain blocker. It'll block out all these things that we want to block out. We even make one, Zip Prime WB.
Right. And they work very well for water stains.
For water stains, but not for
not tannin stain bleeding is what we call that.
So using a water-based stain blocker on stains like this,
it's not going to cut it.
It's not going to cut it. And Bin, like you said, it's a shellac, so it's alcohol-based.
Smelly,
fast
drying.
Not fun to work with, but Betsy always referred to it as a silver bullet. It fixes the problem, period.
It's an insurance policy.
Definitely. So you don't have to prime that whole ceiling, though.
No.
So you just have to spot prime.
Just where the knots are, if there's a dark sap streak, something like that, but not the entire ceiling, just here and there.
You could use, just a brush.
A
throwaway
quart
brush.
of it with a brush, or it also is available in an aerosol can. You can spray it on.
Definitely. So you want to do that. It's going to dry very quickly. Make sure you're ventilating and all of those things. But once that's dry, you're ready to go with the painting part. But you do need to get everything masked off, and we're talking plastic everywhere.
Right. So obviously, the things in the ceiling that you don't want painted are things like light fixtures, smoke detectors. Those you need to mask off well. And if you use plastic for that, you have to be careful to not use an incandescent light bulb or not have the lights on, because that gets so hot that it could melt the plastic. If you use paper, of course, now the light fixture isn't going to work very well. So maybe use LED bulbs or compact fluorescents if you need the light that those light fixtures are giving off. Auxiliary lighting is another thing.
It's going to be a must.
Right. But while we're still on the subject of masking here, make sure all those things in the ceiling that you need to mask off are obviously done. There's going to be overspray that comes down the walls. Depending on what your painting schedule is, generally you're painting the ceiling, you're probably going to be painting the walls too. As long as you do the painting of the ceiling first, you don't have to worry so much about masking off the walls.
Right. That would be only if you've got, a finish on the walls that you don't want to
disturb.
Then it's even more complicated, the masking part of things.
Right. That could be done, though, with what we like to use is masking film, which comes with a little dispenser, and it unfolds. So it's only maybe 6 inches or a foot wide while you're applying it, but then it unfolds to this much larger piece of plastic.
Right. And then you just tape down the bottom and you're good to go.
Yeah.
Definitely you got to cover the floor. What you don't want to use is plastic on the floor.
Right.
Super slippery, and it's not absorbent.
Right. So you end up tracking paint drips everywhere.
Yes. Been there, done that.
Yeah.
So canvas is really good for that. We do have those paper plastic ones.
Well,
that would be absorbent, but they're still a little slippery.
The other thing that I like to use in those situations are rolls of paper that we sell.
Gotcha. Yep.
And you just roll a few strips of that out. You know, you can get it in 4-foot widths, so it doesn't take that many strips, and it's relatively inexpensive. It's probably less money than if you were to look at a plastic drop cloth for the whole floor anyway.
Right. It is inexpensive. The kids will have extra paper to do all kinds of huge art projects on when you're done.
It's kind of fun to have around.
The canvas ones, they're never bad to have.
And they can be reused indefinitely.
Over and over again.
Years and years.
A little pricier, but definitely put the time into
masking
and the prep work part of it. Once you got that done, it's time to move on to the paint. Nancy was wondering what kind of paint. She wondered about a primer and paint all in one. Is that necessary? Do we have one?
Well, almost every paint can be considered a paint and primer in one.
Exactly.
It depends a little bit on the surface, and certainly this surface is pretty easy. We're assuming bare wood. Paint will stick to that no problem. Regular wall paint, you don't need to have something that's specifically designed as a paint and primer in one, or even to go to a separate primer and then put a paint over it. Not necessary in this situation.
Right. The only issue with the primer is the knots and things like that, which is why we're recommending the bin.
Right.
But other than that, you can go to a good acrylic paint. That's going to be ideal for sticking to the galvanized pipes, the ductwork.
That's right.
Those kinds of
plastics.
Things. Right. So anyway, what about finish?
Generally, the lower sheen is better, right? A flat finish or eggshell doesn't show imperfections. Typically, you wouldn't see a glossy ceiling in anything other than a kitchen or bathroom, possibly. So what seems appropriate to me in a living space would be a very low sheen paint.
Right. So there you go with that. She wondered about coverage. How does she figure out coverage? Coverage is kind of tricky. When you're just rolling a wall, it's pretty straightforward. A gallon will cover about 400 square feet on a sealed surface, one coat. So when we're talking about this ceiling, it's not a sealed surface, so the paint's going to soak in a little bit more. You're
got
spraying
all these
it.
Joists. There's some loss from spraying.
Right.
There's some overspray. But then there's these joists where all that surface area, you have to take that all into consideration.
Right. So figure you're probably, with what Dan's saying, with the overspray and with that extra surface area that you're covering, you generally want to figure about 2 to 3 times the floor space. So figure out your floor space.
Right. And the
double
ceiling
it,
space will be 2 to 3 times that much area.
And then divide by, what do you think?
Approximately 300 square feet per gallon.
Yeah. And we can help you with that math. If you just come in with the floor square footage and tell us you're doing the ceiling,
right,
we'll be able to get you a recommendation when it comes to how much paint you're going to need. The last thing we probably want to hit before we wrap this one up is the equipment. We mentioned the sprayer at the beginning.
Right.
In the previous segment, but there's a little more to dig into. You want to use a commercial grade sprayer, not just something you pick up.
Not in any old sprayer, not a handy person special, not a homeowner do-it-yourselfer type of sprayer.
It just doesn't work well enough.
Generally, those type of sprayers require the paint to be thinned out with water in order to work. And now you're losing coverage. It doesn't flow right. It runs.
They're loud,
hide.
Incredibly loud to use.
And they wear out quickly.
Right. So you generally want to rent a commercial grade sprayer.
Right.
And as we mentioned, a lot of our stores, most of our stores will rent that out. I'll put links in the show notes. Ideally, just give the closest RepcoLite or Port City Paints a call, and even if they don't rent it out, they can get it from one of the stores that do and get it to you. And,
spraying is a lot like what we were talking about before with welding. It's a little bit intimidating at first. It is intimidating. But it really isn't. Within minutes of using a sprayer, you will become proficient. And it's fun.
It is fun. It is fun. It is a little tricky.
Yeah, you have to get a little touch to it.
You will learn your way around it. And when you're spraying areas like with pipes and with ductwork and with wires, you're going to run into some issues where you've got to configure or
move
finagle
around. And...
in order to get behind it, because you'll create shadows of uncoated areas on the wall. All of that takes a little bit of figuring out.
Right.
But jumping into it, like I said earlier, we did that at my parents' house right when I started at RepcoLite. So as incompetent as I sometimes still am, back then I was even worse.
Oh, I can hardly imagine.
Yeah.
How horrible that must have been.
And we did it. And we did a remarkable job.
And you were happy with it.
Really happy. So we'll walk you through everything you need when it comes to the sprayer. And we'll walk you through how to use it. And we're always available on the phone if you run into any issues or have some questions.
Yeah, we'll walk you through all those things.
All of that is doable. It's a great project. Painting that basement ceiling is going to change the room dramatically, almost more than anything else will.
You'll want to hang out down there now.
Yeah.
You want to find a different place for all those boxes of stuff that you don't have a place for.
Yeah, and the laundry. Let's move that up into the living room because this space is so nice now. Anyway, if you've got any questions about that project or any project at all involving sprayers, if you want to get your basement floor painted, we've got products to help you with all of that.
Sure.
Yeah, the options are limitless.
Virtually limitless.
Yeah, let's say virtually.
Yeah.
Anyway, we're going to take a break. Hopefully that helps Nancy out. We're going to send her a $50 gift certificate.
And other people that might have questions, please write in and we'll get you a $50 gift certificate as well if we use your question on the air.
Definitely. radio@repcolite.com. Send your questions there. We're going to take a break. And when we come back, we're talking about Dan's Christmas present.
Oh, yeah.
Which is an outdoor cooking implement. An outdoor cooker. And it is so cool. I want one. I'm jealous. And you're going to want one too. We're going to talk about that in just a minute. Stick around.
If you want to take your DIY skills up a rung, the RepcoLite Home Improvement Show is here to give you a boost. On News Radio Wood 1300 and 106.9 FM.
Well, Dan, you brought in was it your big Christmas present?
Yes, it was.
This was the big one.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, you brought that into our studio here, and I saw you preparing it.
Right.
What you got was what's it called? A Firedisc?
Firedisc.
Outdoor cooker.
That's right.
So what it really is it's a fancy modern version of a plow disc cooker. If anybody's ever heard of those.
I hadn't until you mentioned it.
Yeah, they're actually, it's really old stuff, from 100 years or more ago, where generally in the Southwest, they would literally take the discs from farming implements, that you're tilling up the ground with, and they have a hole in the center of them where an axle goes through. They would weld that shut. Welding. They seal that.
Keeps coming up.
And you've got this big bowl, and some of them can be, 24 inches across in diameter. And they would use that as a pan. They would weld horseshoes onto the handles. Right. And over open flames, it's a great cooking surface.
I thought this was a new thing. This was a recent development.
No, your Firedisc is a modern version of those older type things, and there's a lot of them out there. But we should describe it because it's super cool. Yours is...
It's a big, heavy pan.
Yeah.
It's, maybe 22 inches in diameter, heavy steel pan, and it sits on a stand with a propane burner under it.
Right. And so it's a super modern version. It's powder coated, so it's resistant to the heat and all of that you're using. It is really, really, really cool. You were seasoning that because basically it's like a great big cast iron
skittle.
Skittle.
I
love those like cast iron skittles.
Don't bite them. Just you got to suck them.
Dennis loves it when you're chewing the cast iron skittles. No, skillet. Normally, I'm the one screwing up the language.
Right.
I don't even know what to do. I'm just sitting here in a moment of glory. Anyway, it's just like a great big cast iron skillet where you've got to season it and do all of those things. But, okay, I guess we got to take a step back. Yours is called a Firedisc.
Right.
You can find that online, Firedisc, and DISC is the spelling there. And super cool. It's made in America. A couple of brothers out of Texas kind of dreamed this up. They're outdoorsy kind of guys.
Yeah, it's perfect for that kind of.
Yeah, they were familiar with the Plowshare cooker that I was talking about earlier, and they were just trying to come up with the best outdoor implement for cooking. And this is what they came up with. It's super portable. You mentioned it comes with a stand, but it's basically 2 legs that kind of connect with
they just slip together, right?
Yeah. So you pop them apart, and that piece is already ready to be put away.
It's 3 pieces. It's the 2 pieces that make up the stand, and then the pan.
The pan itself.
And I thought when I got it, it came in a box, obviously, at Christmas time, and I thought, okay, I better see what tools I need to put this together. I don't know what I have with me. And I was expecting it to be some process of having to bolt things together and all that kind of stuff, and open it up, and it's there's nothing to put together here.
Yeah. Pull out the 2 different leg components.
Put them together.
Put those together in a cross form.
Yep.
And
put the pan on top.
Pan sits on top.
Hook up the propane and start it up.
Right. Now, it's not a flat-bottomed pan. It's more of a bowl. It's almost like a wok.
Yes.
But much thicker.
Right.
All right. So what you get with that, there's a plus and a minus, but if you learn to adapt to how it cooks and how it heats, the whole thing is a positive. It's not uniform heat all the way across the pan.
It's obviously hottest in the middle where that burner is, and then as you go to the outer edges of the pan, it gets cooler. So you cook different foods in different places in the pan.
That's what makes it so cool.
Yeah.
You watch it online, and there's so many different things you can do with it. You can start, for example, chicken fajitas or steak fajitas. So you start in the middle of the pan with your steak or your chicken, and you get that going. And as you get that to the point where it's starting to be close to done, you move that to the outer rim,
the edge where it's cooler,
and it's cooler. It'll keep it warm, but it's not going to overcook
anymore.
it. Right now, you've put your onions and your peppers and all your vegetables in the middle, and you start doing that, and the whole thing is super cool. Once you get close to done on everything, you move all of that to the middle, and then you ring the cooker with your tortillas.
Oh, perfect! Yeah,
and just toast them ever so slightly.
You can cook things with it that you wouldn't be able to cook on, say, a grill.
Right, it's really tough to saute onions on a grill. There's a lot of falling through the cracks.
Right.
No, it's and again, because it's this bowl shape, it'll hold some liquid. So and that's what they said on their website is how interesting it is to watch what people are cooking and the new recipes, I guess is the wrong word, but the new meals that people are preparing that they didn't anticipate, like pasta. This bowl that you've got will hold up to 5 gallons of water.
Oh, right.
So you can boil pasta.
I hadn't even thought of that.
Kinds of different things.
Can you make a pizza in it?
I don't know. I would think you can do pretty much what you want. One thing that I thought was really interesting is you can, again, put oil in there, heat that up.
Use
and
it
now
as a fryer.
Right. You can make fried chicken. There's recipes on their website for fried pickles. Have you ever had that?
Oh, yeah. I love fried pickles.
Really, really good. All kinds of different things. So many options.
Right.
I am so excited that you got this.
I know. I can't wait to even try. Barely tried it out. We did try it out in the building, which we ended up not being a good idea. I would say this is definitely an outdoor cooker.
Yeah, we did some bacon, and the whole building still smells a little bit like bacon.
Yeah, right.
I was really happy that it was your decision to do that, and I was just along for the ride.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, who doesn't like bacon, even if it's not perfectly prepared? Now the whole place smells like bacon.
Yeah. But it's really cool. I mean, it transports easy, and you can use you could use a large propane tank if
with
you
an
wanted
adapter,
to buy an adapter
with a hose. Yeah,
but it will run right off of the
little one. That's what we have it hooked up with right now.
Yeah, cleans up relatively easily.
Yeah, simple to clean.
A little bit pricey.
Yeah,
but still.
Again,
really cool.
And it's a high quality tool. It's a high quality piece of equipment. It's going to last a long time.
Exactly. The Firedisc Cooker. We're going to put links in the show notes because this is one of those things I think you could get a ton of mileage out of. Really interesting, really fun, probably worth the expense.
A great reason to be outdoors, too.
Yeah, exactly. Well, Dan, that's it. We've got to wrap it up.
All right.
If you want to check this one out again, you can find it online at RepcoLite.com. Remember, all of the RepcoLite and Port City paint stores are open till 3 o'clock today, waiting to see you. Stop by and say hi. Whatever you do today, make sure paint's a part of it. I'm Dan Hansen.
And I'm Dan Altina.
Thanks for listening.